Welcome to our monthly ACTS Town Hall. Thanks to our member companies for helping make these town halls possible. Your support makes our mission a reality. Together in safety, stronger in collaboration. The ACTS Town Halls are an open forum to discuss concerns and present potential solutions to improve damage prevention and excavation safety. These town halls are meant to be a discussion, and you're encouraged to ask questions and share solutions. If you have a question, please type it into the chat or click the raise hand icon. Give us a few seconds, and we will permit you to unmute yourself. To unmute, click on the microphone icon in the top right corner of your screen. Please try to keep your comments brief to allow others time to interact. A recording of this town hall will be posted on our YouTube channel and sent via email after the town hall has concluded. Before the end of the town hall, each of our panelists will highlight a moving forward step to ensure we stay focused on practical and impactful solutions. We are pleased to have a knowledgeable and experienced panel with us today. So to get us started, our moderator will begin with brief introductions.
I want to welcome you to the July Town Hall meeting. My name is Bill Turner. I'm the President and CEO of Tennessee 811. The topic today that we have is positive response codes contributing to clarity or confusion. And the description that I'd like to talk about today is positive response codes were designed to play a crucial role in clear and specific communication between excavators and utilities. Both excavators and locators alike have expressed displeasure with the codes not being specific enough. Is it time to revisit these issues? Have current positive response codes contributed to a lack of clarity in excavator process? Should there be a universal code that crosses state lines to provide greater clarity and confidence in the system? Should the process begin with asking excavators and locators to sit down together with 811 centers to identify their specific concerns? Before we get involved in the discussion, I want to give the panelists just a few seconds to introduce themselves, who they work for, what their responsibilities are. So, Jana, would you like to start?
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Jana Bruin. I'm the Damage Prevention Program Manager for BP Pipelines. I've been in the pipeline industry 30 plus years. My first role was locating the pipeline. That was the engineer's responsibility. So I have been a locator. But I've worked in the construction maintenance and everything that there is in between. And as a side note, we handle all of our locates internally.
Great.
Turn over to the next person.
Roy?
My name is Roy Socklaben. Good afternoon, everybody, or still a little bit of a good morning. I'm a safety manager in Kentucky and Ohio for Star Construction, but for 5 years I was a construction supervisor. At Star Construction, we focus on comprehensive construction services and maintenance for the telecommunication industry. We excavate in not only my states of Ohio and Kentucky, but throughout the Southeast and Missouri. And we like to say we cover all the SEC as well as large portions of the ACC and Big Ten.
Excellent. Holly?
Hello, everyone. I'm Holly Files, with Liaison Director with Georgia 811. Much like Jan, I started in this industry 35 years ago as a locate technician. Been at Georgia 811 for 23 years now, and glad to be here.
Joey?
All right, good morning. Joey Scarborough, USIC. This is 21 years for me, starting off as a technician as well. I'm a regional director for USIC and currently have responsibility over Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama.
Excellent. All right, well, let's just jump right into things. The first question I'd like to ask the panel is positive response helpful to you, and how does it benefit you? Jana, would you like to start?
Certainly. Positive response, I think, is very helpful, especially for the excavator, because this gives the excavator the ability to find out who that is involved in their ticket has responded or not. They can get that information from the one call center, plus several or multiple companies do send messages out to the excavator. But I think positive response is extremely important because For instance, you may have a liquid pipeline and a natural gas distribution center system in your excavation area. We both use yellow flags. How do you know which one's which unless you're looking at the flags? And if you check positive response, you can see exactly who's responded and if anybody has not.
Okay. Joey, how about from the locator perspective?
Yeah, I think it's critical. It allows us another way to communicate back with the excavator. If there are, any issues that we run into with the locator request, things as, access issues, scope related issues, things such as weather. So it just allows a better communication between us and the excavator to help streamline the process, avoid downtime, those kind of tasks.
Roy, obviously from the excavator's perspective, you like to know what you're going to be facing when you get out to the job site. How does it benefit you?
Absolutely, it's essential. We have to know who's been out there. Otherwise, we're going to be going to location after location after location, just trying to get eyes on the ground. If we can eliminate some of those, it's going to reduce our burden quite a bit. And that way we can focus on the trouble spots. Otherwise, we're just running around in loops around cities and in many places, middle of nowhere, back alleys that have no cell service. So we just got to be careful with all
that. Yeah. Holly, obviously, us in the one call, we don't own underground lines. We don't call for locates and we don't put paint on the ground. But how useful is positive response to you in the 811 business?
Well, I think it connects, creates a direct connect with the two most important stakeholders in damage prevention, which is the person excavating and the locate technician. I believe it provides clarity and accountability for both the excavator and the utility. And a good example, I think, is we had a situation where there were two telecom companies on this one locate request. And one of the telecoms got out there and spray painted on the ground telecom clear or some sort of symbol like that. But the other telecom had not come yet. And that excavator hit a fiber and it basically lost his business over it. So it provides a comprehensive response from all members.
So it sounds like to me that, the greatest benefit of positive response is the connection, the communication. Everybody kind of knows what the other person's doing. And I know one challenge that we've had in Tennessee is how much is too much? How many are too many codes? What in your all's opinion, are the most important codes to be used in giving a positive response? How about we start with you, Joey?
Yeah, I think we have some of them currently in place. I think probably the delay option. There's some opportunity there to break that down. What's causing the delay? What's the real issue that we're running into in the field? But we need to be able to provide when a facility's marked, when a facility's clear. That way, to Holly's point, when an excavator goes out there, they know what they're looking for. They should have an idea. Hey, they're saying that they marked something. Where are the marks on the ground? They're saying that this specific utility is clear. Can I verify that so I know, which utilities have responded and which utilities haven't?
Roy, how about you? You're the one out there. These are the codes that you're getting that help you successfully start your project on time and do it safely. What codes are important to you?
The most important codes are the ones that are the simplest, the black and white ones. Yes, it's done. No, it's not. Where it tends to break down where the problems tend to crop up is all the finicky little bits, all the fiddly bits. Did it not get marked for reason A, B, C, D, E, F on down? In our states, we have to deal with codes, the number of codes from 8 to I think 29. So and we don't work in Georgia, so I heard Georgia's got a lot more than that. So being able to easily see a particular code and understand it right away is going to be key. They're going to be looking at, the supervisors are going to be looking at, is it done or is it not done? And if it's not done, how do I get it done? And that's really what they want to focus on.
Jana?
Just echoing everybody else's, one that I like to see when states have them is something like critical facility owner must be on site or something along that line. That lets people know that, it's something that they can't just dig around, even following the safety zone or the tolerance zone for that state. Obviously the clear and all that. I think the delay is a little gray area. We're in 15 different states, and some states allow for locators to negotiate a different due date for their locate due to their workload. And I think that makes it very hard for those that are not negotiating a due date to know what's going on with that project, because there's nothing in the ticket or communication or anything that indicates that excavation is delayed due to one utility owner's inability to get on site. So I think that's a hard one, but I very much like to see that critical facilities or, something like that.
Would so if somebody responded to a positive response and they put critical facility, what then does that mean to you? What should happen when they see that there's a positive response and, for example, BP has put in there that it's a critical facility? What action are you wanting next then?
We actually send to the excavator based on, their either their email or their phone, as they've requested, information about our requirement that we be on site anytime anybody's digging within 25 feet of us. The very hard thing is large excavators that have somebody in the office that's putting in tickets, renewing tickets. They're getting those messages, and there's a disconnect between the messages that we're sending getting to the person in the field that actually needs that information to be doing the execution of the work. So I wish there was some way we could get that clarified, or have a field contact be, specified a little bit more clearly. And I know the one call tickets have that, field contact, but people are misusing that and putting just an office number. So, but we do send messages out so that we have it documented that we requested to be on site. And additionally, we have private easements in some areas, and people don't even have the right to excavate in our private easements without getting prior approval from our right-of-way.
Holly, I know that Georgia's had positive response for a long time, and your codes that you guys use have grown quite a bit over time. And I know that this is something that you are undertaking right now, is trying to boil that down. Tell us a little bit about what you started at, where you are now, and what's gotten to you where you're trying to refine this list a little bit.
Yeah. Yes, we are currently reviewing our PRIS codes, and yes, we do have a lot. And we started in 2001 was when positive response started for us, and the codes have grown quite a bit since then. And we kind of break them down into categories. So there's marked, and then you can have codes underneath that, like the one that Jana was just mentioning. We have one that says high profile utility. And then you have unmarked, and there are a lot of codes there. And it specifies the reason why those codes are unmarked. And I know it's not great to have a ton of PRIS codes or positive response codes, but it helps work out the issue quicker if you know what it is. And delays, we have a delay code that's under the unmarked category, and it's controversial, but delays happen in the field. So to me, it makes sense to have it, because there could be a facility that's difficult to locate. It could be a weather issue. It could be a volume issue. But I and maybe Roy can answer this. I believe if I was an excavator, I would want to know if there was going to be delay on my ticket. So I'd rather the excavator have that info and maybe not roll a truck out there or crew out there to do that work and it's not ready to go. But when you have no matter how many PRIS codes you have, you're going to have people abuse them. And sometimes that code gets abused for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about delayed for a minute, because I know this is a hot topic for a lot of people. So Roy, from your perspective, when you view a positive response and it says delayed and there's no additional information, what does that mean to you as an excavator?
It means I got to get on the phone and start talking to somebody. I got to find out who's delayed it and why. If I have a contact person, that's fantastic. A code is great. Finicky little codes, I hate to say it that way, but the fiddly codes, the ones that, dog in backyard, something esoteric like that. Yeah, those are good, because then we understand what the issue is, but at the same time, how do we get it fixed? As an excavator, I really wanted to focus on the stuff that I could help fix. So if it was something I did wrong when I submitted my ticket, that's something I need to work on. That's something I need to make right. If it's helping somebody get into a facility, I've had to do that before working with AT&T. They have a lot of areas where they're behind fences. It's just a tower out in the middle of nowhere with an 18-foot fence and barbed wire around it, and there's a 4-digit code on the front of the gate that we have to get access to. So it's a lot of these things that we have to overcome. That's why, honestly, communication is the best thing. Having that phone number, having that contact, having that working relationship with somebody, it's so important.
So Joey, from the locator perspective, and you guys are probably one of the largest users of positive response, obviously, because of the amount of work that you're doing. What would, in your world, what would justify you putting a delay code on a ticket?
Well, I mean, there's probably a lot of scenarios, right? Weather's one of them. That's especially this time of year, depending on which state you're in, which area you're working. Right now, probably the biggest elephant in the room is the fiber overbuild work and the really unlimited number of tickets that can be called in, and the willingness to work on both sides, right? We've got to work with the excavators. We need the excavators to work with us. And when an excavator calls in, 100 tickets at a time, and they're all due at the same time, we need to be able to work with that excavator, delay the tickets where you're not working, have a good plan. It's been said several times already, the communication between the locators and the excavators is critical. So if we have to delay because of, excess volume on a specific project, the excavator reaches out, we can get a good marking schedule, and work with the excavator. Hey, you don't have to call in all your tickets at once. Call in what you can do. Let's work together. Let's not bog down the 811 system and, keep you from, delaying any work or having to stop work, shut down those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
Right, can I
jump
there real quick? I know some of the states that we're in are looking at setting limits to how often tickets or how volume tickets can be put in. The bad thing is it ranges all over. The amount of work you could do in 2 weeks, one state's talking 750 feet, which is, as you know, nothing. That would be a whole lot of tickets for a road project or a fiber project. And then we've got other states that it's 2 miles. So that part's hard, but it is helpful if a state does have something in their code about what is allowed for tickets and how far they're going to go and how much, so they're not calling in the situation Joey described.
Mm-hmm. Roy, you had something to say?
Yeah, the thing I was going to pick up on is, I know for our company, we do a lot of work in-house, but we do a large amount of work with subcontractors. Subcontractors will come into an area, they'll work for 6, 8, 12, 18 months maybe. and then they're gone. So they don't have time to actually to develop those kind of interactions with the locator. So it might be a good idea to, if you've got a subcontractor in there, have them put the information on their ticket that they're doing work for somebody. They're doing work for Star or Miller Pipeline or, Elliott or somebody like that, to at least that way the locators who have that working relationship with the big company, the main company, they have another avenue to be able to call and get information from.
Mm-hmm. Holly, what's your perspective on delayed locates or delayed code?
It's definitely a slippery slope. And when it first came about, I was like, what? I was really against it. But I felt like it was representative of what's happening in the field. And many times things get legislated that will never be possible to be feasible day to day in the field. So I do believe that as an excavator, they at least know there's going to be a delay. And it does create a data set to hold the utility accountable. Because if you've got a high volume of what we call the 3N code, the late code or the delay code, then that's a way for you to look at your performance and maybe make some corrections to try to either increase headcount or manage your workforce differently.
You talked about in Georgia that you have like main category codes and then subcodes. As we're talking through this delayed, that seems like to me one of the most feasible main codes to have subcodes, because delayed alone really doesn't help anybody out. But if you can explain why it's delayed, whether it's weather related or lock gate, those type things. Does everybody agree? Anybody have a position on that? Joey?
No, I agree 100%. I mean, we've said it again, the more we're able to communicate to the excavator what the issue is, what's the cause for the delay. And sometimes that's a response on a ticket. And, in the locate industry, we got to do a better job of calling the contact on the ticket. But it also helps if that contact on the ticket is the right person and not somebody in an office and those kind of things. So the response code helps, but we can get better as well at making those calls to the excavator.
Would that be a normal practice for you guys, Joey, that
it is?
If you delayed a ticket, you would contact the person that's on that ticket to let them know?
Yeah, that's normal practice. That's what we should be doing. Some states, they don't allow you to do that delay without contacting the excavator first, right? And having more of a mutually agreed upon start date, states like Texas, some of those states, but no, that should be normal practice. If we have to delay a ticket, we should reach out to the excavator, and then we, set the response code and they get it on that side as well.
How do you feel about that, Roy? I mean, you've made your notification, you've done what you're supposed to do, and now you get this delay code from somebody and they call you and they say, hey, it's going to be a couple of days. I know you're probably not happy, you're not getting to start your work, but does that satisfy the communication exchange between you and the utility company?
For me, it always did. There's going to be certain jobs where we have an expectation of being able to start at a specific day. With my relationship with the locators that I worked with, it was, hey, we can't get this done today. Can we start tomorrow? Yeah, no big deal. Or if we had to actually start it on a certain day, I would say, hey, I have to have this particular location done. We can forget about this other ticket for a couple of days. Please focus on this one. Luckily, it's never really been a situation for me where it's 3 or 4 utilities that are saying we can't get this done. It's always one, and it's never the same one. It's never always telecommunications, always gas, always electric. It just depends on where you're at and the craziness of the situation. So, but yeah, that's the way it goes.
Jana, any comment on that?
I do think there's definitely good use of delay, or maybe not delay, but I don't like the unable to locate. That's one that bothers me. I have worked in the gas distribution area, and if you're the facility owner and you're unable to locate, you need to get something out there to pothole your utilities and find it. That's not the excavator's responsibility. But I'd like to have a code that says something along the lines of, I can't figure out where you're digging. I know a lot of states are going to mandatory white lining, which is extremely helpful, or digital white lining. But sometimes we have tickets that we just cannot figure out where people are working from the description. And I'm not sure how to address those. What we do with those is we just mark those as involved until we can get a hold of somebody to find out what's going on.
Hey, Jan, I want to address your concern about when I said unlocatable, and I know I should be using the phrase difficult to locate, but I will say this: in Georgia, the Public Service Commission, which is the enforcement arm of our dig law, does not accept that it could be a gas facility that is unlocatable. If you can't put paint on it, you got to send a crew out there to dig it up. And that can take a week, 2 weeks, and that really, to me, makes the delay code or the late code make sense, because there are scenarios where that happens. But thank you for the correction, Jana.
Yes. Because, of course, they need to have their own one-call ticket to do that excavation.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Ironically enough.
So I, like many of you, have been in the industry for a long time, and I know when people hear the word standardization, they kind of cringe. Obviously, positive response is very, very important in safety and what we do. Is it possible for us to standardize at least main codes nationwide? I think it's needed. It sounds like it's needed, but is that possible? Can we actually do this? I mean, Janet, you guys operate in many states. Roy, you work in different states. Obviously, USIC, you cover the whole United States and locating. Is this a feasible objective? I mean, can we do this?
I definitely think so. I am on the damage prevention working group with the American Pipeline Institute, and one of the things that we're working on is trying to do some standardization. Right now, we're working on just even the work being done and getting those into like drop downs or something, because some states have 30 plus options for work being done, and would like to get that clarified. And we're trying to work on things that don't require legislative change. I definitely think this is something that we could do. We have a majority of our states that only have 4 response codes. And that really doesn't, it's just tight. So, it's like you're doing a best fit, square peg in a round hole thing. If it's not clear, you're trying to figure out which one to use. I love states that have design codes so that people can call in design tickets, find out who they're going to work with ahead of time. I wish fiber would do design ahead of time and talk with people and get some of these, right away and easement glitches worked out. And then along what Joey was saying, if they know they've got a project coming and when they're looking to start, you can staff appropriately or distribute staff. So I do think we could work on this, and this is something that would be a benefit to everybody, because we have states that do not have positive response at all.
Joey, how about you? I mean, you cover a lot of states, and you've got to kind of train your folks to understand the different codes in the different states. What's your perspective?
No, I think absolutely. I think there's probably unique situations across the United States, but I think that it doesn't matter if you're in Florida or you're in California. If weather is impacting you, then that could be a positive response code, right? No access is no access. So I think there's absolutely a solid baseline of positive responses that could be used across the country. I guess it depends on how deep you would take that delay. We deal with things in Florida that you're not going to deal with in North Dakota probably, and vice versa with seasoning and all that stuff. But absolutely, I think there can be a very well put together list of positive response codes that could be uniform across the nation.
We have someone here. Scott has a hand up for a question. If y'all would be
Sure.
all right to ask. Let me get his mic unmuted. All right, Scott, you can unmute your mic.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I wanted to kind of go back to that unlocatable, because there is nothing that's unlocatable. And the current CGA TR that's being written, it's being written by Southwestern Gas, and that is that there is a response that has to take place that escalates within 2 full business days. And so what they have taken on, which I love, I mean, I've been doing this all my life, and actually started out in the gas industry, so I understand it. But one of the problems we face is unlocatable gas lines, and then it just gets left. And of course, Washington State, where we're Washington, Idaho, Montana, Oregon. And so Oregon is totally different. And they have actually worked through this, because I cannot put my people in danger with an unlocatable in the language in our law in Washington that says nobody shall be held liable for death or injury. And I have, and Kemp's on here too. Kemp knows that I've been fighting this one for a long time, because it's my people, my kids, my family, my employees that are out there with gas lines that they just throw up their hands and go, we're walking away from it. It's not right. And we'll hear, oh, it'll be however long. Well, at what point we get 5 unlocatables on one project, and it's like, well, now what do I do? So we go out, we're investing the time with our hydrovacs, we're spending the money to find them. They're not locating them and putting them back into their mapping system. Nothing's happened. So I really don't like this idea of unlocatable. It's called a trouble ticket. That's how the CGA is actually referring to it. Southwest Gas is leading I got to give them praises for what they are doing, because it keeps our people safe. We, in everything, are trying to make sure that we don't hit stuff. But I just don't ever say anything's unlocatable, because it is. It just takes effort and time. And I know I think I saw in the chat, I think in Wisconsin, it is an emergency ticket if it's unlocatable. When I worked in Colorado for Source Gas at the time, Colorado had actually said, if you have an unlocatable gas line, you shall make it locatable within 2 full business days. We don't care how you do it. If you have to go out there and put a new gas line in, or you go out, take we didn't really have hydrovacs back then, but they said you will make that locatable so it doesn't get hit. It's about safety. So if I could, that's kind of what I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Roy, back on the standardizing the codes, how do you feel about that from an excavator perspective?
I would love to see it. When we first started talking about this particular event, I started looking at some of the codes in areas that I don't really work in. States that I don't work in, and it's a little crazy. Depending on where you go, you're going to have a different code. And a lot of our companies, a lot of our local yards actually work, 2 different states from the same location. So they'll have to cross from, Knoxville right across into Kentucky. So the codes are completely different. And I'll be honest, even though I'm a native and I love my state, the Kentucky codes are just a little silly. There's not that many of them, but instead of breaking them out individually or just giving them numbers, they start giving them letters too. So now you got all these different ways to look at things. But I would love to see some sort of standardization, maybe grouping things in a certain area so that all your 1-0s would have, or 1-1s, 1-2s, whatever, would be a certain area, a certain type of something. I think it would be just beneficial to everybody. I think everybody would be able to get on board with something like that. But honestly, I think the best code that could be added would be one that simply says, please call me for fixing this. I mean, that's really what we would need to have, just something, and then a place for a phone number to call.
Do you find in your experience when you go from one state to another state, that the same code name has different meaning?
Not well, the same. The code will have a difference. So like a 01 in one state is going to be different than a 01 in somebody
Right.
else's, but descriptions are generally close
But
enough to understand.
if two states use the code in conflict, does that have the same meaning in both of those states?
In my experience right now, yeah, I haven't seen where it doesn't. It can, I understand it can, but for the areas that I've been working in, I haven't seen any difference.
Holly, I know you guys have been working on this, so bring us around and tell us how easy it is to standardize these codes amongst all the stakeholders, because I'm sure you guys have it figured out.
Well, thank you for serving up that softball, sir. Wow. I thought we were friends, man. Okay, so we are reviewing the PRIS codes with different groups, and we're not through all of the groups, but we're getting recommendations from our excavator advisory committee for Georgia 811, the same. We have a locate technician advisory committee. So we want to be talking to the people in the field and make them part of the conversation, because we already have a lot of people like me that's sitting at a desk not actually doing the work. So we're running it through a lot of groups and getting feedback, and then we've got to bring it all together and try to work through what will work. And then, of course, our Public Service Commission, which enforces the law, would work with us to make the final decisions on what would happen there. So it is a long haul. It's not something that's going to happen real fast. But as far as categories go, I think, or if you wanted to have some continuity throughout the states, I think that's a goal that we probably should try to achieve. And if we use the categories, say marked, like the categories we have is marked, all of those are 1 codes. Unmarked, they're all 3 codes. Then we have clear or no conflict. And then we have design codes, because those responses are different. And we have large project codes so if we use those different categories, we probably could come up with something for some continuity throughout the states. And then as you list codes under there, maybe there's the flexibility that you could achieve that you need from state to state. But I don't think we'll ever get to this is a list, because the legislation is different in so many states.
I know in Tennessee, our legislation doesn't specify what the positive response codes need to be or are. Is there any state that you guys are familiar with that has in the code itself what the responses are supposed to be or should be? Just out of curiosity.
Not in any of the states we're in.
We did have a change in Georgia in 2020 that it specified that if someone called in a design locate and it was a single address, the utility had to put paint on the ground, basically. And if it was anything that exceeds a single address, then the utility would provide records. It's not a choice. Wow. It used to be a choice. So that's the only function that I know where the legislation actually forced a PRIS code change.
Joey, are you familiar with any of the states you guys operate in that it's written in the code in the law what the codes need to be or should be?
No, I don't. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but not that I'm aware of.
So, is it fair to me to say that if we make an attempt to standardize these, we're really not being handcuffed by legislation? Is that a true statement?
I believe so.
Roy?
I think that's accurate. The other thing I don't know how difficult it would be. Because now we've got the problem where everybody has their own particular type of app or computer program or web interface in order to have these drop-down menus in order to input all these codes. If it's something as simple as changing the databases on those, that would be fantastic. If it's not, then there's other issues we got to start looking at. But this is probably something we could start in a couple of places. Tennessee and Kentucky could start working together. Tennessee and start working with Georgia. I mean, these are kind of things I think we could start doing, and then it's going to take a little time, but it would eventually branch out.
Jenna had said earlier that there's a task force that's working on work types, trying to standardize that, which I'm in full support of. And I think that these positive response codes go hand in hand with that. I think that they're equally as important, maybe even more important than standardizing the type of work codes. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I wanted to give each one of you an opportunity to share where we go. From your perspective, from your stakeholder group, what do you think needs to be done in the near future in relation to positive response? How about we start with you, Joey?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I think it'd be useful if we just have, the positive response codes, more consistent, as we talked about throughout the country. Doesn't mean they're all going to be uniform, but some consistency across the board. Have the proper codes to ensure that, any issues that we have with the locate request, some of the examples we talked about, weather, access issues, scopes, or we just don't understand what we need to locate, the ability to communicate that back through a PRIS code, the ability to have the correct contact information on a ticket, so we can make those phone calls. But, it'd be very valuable for us to help us build that communication between us and the excavator with the amount of volume, that we're touching. It definitely makes it a little less stressful on us, makes it less stressful on the excavator, eliminates downtime, all those things. So I think it'd be very valuable.
Right.
Yeah, make things a little bit simpler so that we're not worried so much about, so the locators aren't worried so much about what specific code they're using, but we have to have those phone numbers, and locators have to have those phone numbers. They have to have the phone number of someone who's going to at least be the main contact in the field. We talked about a little bit before about the larger groups, larger companies that will have the centrally located person calling those tickets in. My company did that for about a year. It was a dismal failure. None of the supervisors liked it. We lost contact with the people who were actually working in the field, putting paint on the ground, and we had no way to talk to. So having that simple spot for a phone number is important on both sides, excavators and locators.
Dana?
Well, for me, I'd like to see all states require positive response, since we have a number that don't now. And ultimately, I would like it in state law that the excavator needs to sign off or do something, check a box that they have confirmed in the one call system that they've reviewed all of the positive responses. And that way, if somebody didn't respond, and they check off and they hit that should be on the excavator. Just some way to do that. I don't know a good way to do that. And I think that would be up for discussion on the best way to do that. But that would be my ultimate goal. But still, having everybody have positive response would be great.
That's a great point, Jana. I know some states have that capability or that feature or requirement that the excavator has to check on it. And they can track that the excavator went and looked at it. And that we didn't even get to that point in positive response. We could probably talk all day, but that's a great point. Is a lot of people are doing a lot of work to respond to those tickets. And if it's just ignored, what use is it? So that's a great point. Maybe the next time we get this together, we can go down that rabbit hole. But that's a great point, is the closure or the confirmation on behalf of the excavator. Holly? What do you want to see?
Yeah, I just want to comment on Roy's comment about making sure, the right people are calling in the tickets or creating the tickets. I think that's crucial. And one of the things that, as we were promoting positive response, people were saying, yes, we're checking positive response. But unfortunately, it was not getting to the crew. Somebody was looking at positive response in the office and just saying, you're clear to dig. And positive response gives so much more detailed info there. It really surprised me that the majority of people, that's what they're doing. Oh, you're clear. And you should be printing off or looking digitally on your phone at those positive responses and see, okay, there should be yellow paint, there should be red paint. Oh, there's not blue paint because it's not in conflict or it's clear. So sorry, I want to get off on that tangent, but go Roy is what I say. But I also think we have an obligation to do an annual review of PRISC codes and utilize reviewing the data to see how the codes, if they're being used as intended, maybe the frequency of the use, and also get those people that are doing the work in the conversation, the contractors, the locate technicians. And another thing is positive response is a component of our educational efforts. People learn from those PRISC codes. And sometimes we've got a couple of codes that have a part of the statute in there and for the verbiage. And I want to change that into more simple, more digestible language.
Great points, Holly. You're right. It's educating people on how to call before you dig and why to call before you dig is obviously very important, but those codes and how to utilize them and how to understand them is equally important, because if you don't understand them, then you could go on to do something that could be detrimental to yourself or your crew. So great point. Well taken. This has been really good for me. Tennessee, we've had positive response for several years, and we are going through an exercise now trying to look at our codes. So from the panel, I really, really appreciate your all's input. I think this was fantastic. Again, I apologize for being late, but it's really opened my eyes and helped me on a path forward for Tennessee and how we look to better organize our positive response codes. Any final words?
Appreciate you putting it together.
Well, thank you all for participating.
Yep.
Those that were guests, and especially thanks to the panel.
Thanks to all of you, our panelists, and our moderator for sharing your expertise. Please take a moment now to fill out a brief survey that will be posted in the chat so we can continue to improve these discussions and address topics that are important to you. Be sure to register for next month's Town Hall by visiting our website. Again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next month.